Hey everybody, it's Party Elite with another episode of Total Breakdown. This time we've got a very interesting and very aggressive approach from the Dwarfs of Eumaies against Blazar's Greenskins. Sorry if I mispronounced either of those names. Now, a clever Dwarf Lord with Foe Seeker, a Potion of Foolhardiness, a Potion of Toughness, and Fiery Ring of Thori comes to the field with 4 units of Miners, 4 units of Miners with Blasting Charges, Norgrimling's Ironbreakers, 4 units of Rangers, 3 units of Rangers with Great Weapons, Ulthar's Raiders, a unit of Gyrocopters with Brimstone Guns, and the Grudge Thrower. The Greenskins are led by Grimgor Ironhide with Stand Your Ground, Wah, and Gitsnik. His Orc Shaman comes in with Power of Dawa, Fists of Gork, and Here We Go, and both Goblin Big Bosses are on Spiderback. 5 units of Black Orcs hope to split Dwarven Armor, while 2 units of Night Goblin Archers and a Rusty Errors hope to poison the Dwarfs and sunder their armor to support the melee engagements. The Moon Howlers and Mogreb's Mangy Marauders hope to support the front line with their speed and their armor-piercing missiles respectively as well. Alright, as always, we're going to start with a conversation about deployment, and as you can see, the Dwarfs try something very clever. Like I said, it's very aggressive, so let's take a look at their deployment first. You can see up front, everything more or less has been vanguard deployed. We have on either flank of the front line these miners, just regular miners, while just inside we do have 2 units of miners with blasting charges on either side, with Norgrimling's Ironbreakers in the center over here. So these guys all have blasting charges. They can chuck them before enemy charges come in and cause a severe amount of disruption and damage. Right behind them, we of course have the ranged units. We have 2 units of Rangers on either side. In the middle, we do have Ulthar's Raiders. And then back here, 3 units of Rangers with Great Weapons. Again, a very big range contingent, spread apart just so they're not able to be very quickly shut down. So great deployment there, very aggressive, like I said. All the way back here, meanwhile, we do have the Dwarf Lord, incapable of Vanguard deploying, unfortunately, alongside the Goblobber, as well as these Gyrocopters with Brimstone Guns. And again, able to get some early damage in with the artillery, send the Dwarf Lord in to provide some support, and the Gyrocopters as well push forward and get some nice rear charges or attacks from the rear. A lot of mobility afforded by the Gyrocopter. Now, let's take a look at the Greenskins, who keep it a little bit more simple, though they are trying something a little clever from themselves as well. We have in the main line a front line of Black Orcs, again, as you can expect, very armor-piercing. Right behind them, we do have both Goblin Big Bosses as well as Grimgor Ironhide in the center, providing support wherever necessary, with the Orc Shaman back here, again, able to provide that magical support wherever needed. Then, all the way back here, we have both units of Night Goblin Archers as well as the Rusty Errors, while all the way off in the distance here, we've got Mogreb's Mangy Marauders and the Moon Howlers. And these guys can come in with flanking maneuvers, get some nice charges in, or take care of enemy artillery or range units, whatever might be left behind. So, very interesting deployment. Again, that's like the 3rd time I've said it. Let's see how it all breaks down. As you can imagine, the action starts more or less right away, with the Vanguard deployed Dwarfs pushing forward immediately and all this range fire going in, causing a decent amount of damage to these Black Orcs, focusing down a little bit, I think, on 2 separate contingents, while the Goblobber also lobs some gobs and gets a decent amount of hurt into these Black Orcs. You can see a lot of morale damage being done there as well. And meanwhile, you'll see these blasting charges go off, and take a look at the tremendous amount of damage going through here, not only to health, but also in terms of the formations being absolutely disrupted, completely devastated before those charges are able to close. And you can see on either flank as well, we do have the miners closing the gaps, pushing in for their charges to get some nice damage in nice and early. So great job there, focusing down with all that range support, and then using the blasting charges to absolutely devastate incoming charges. And you can see in the center here as well, we do have Marked by Ulthar going down on this unit of Black Orcs, just getting a nice extra amount of damage in there with the range fire coming in, but also reducing their armor for the melee engagement that was pending. Meanwhile, you'll see Norgrimling's Ironbreakers aren't actually diving into any combat situation, instead opting to open shots off and get those blasting charges in and get more damage done, while the range support continues to flow in, fire through, and get a lot of hurt into these Black Orcs. And you can see already on the left flank, as seen from the Dwarven perspective, these Black Orcs are more or less giving up. They don't want to stick around and fight anymore. While on the right flank over here, of course, with all that focus fire and Marked by Ulthar going down, these Black Orcs have more or less given up already as well. All this while, the Goblobber has been, again, lobbing gobs, getting a decent amount of damage in, 23 kills so far, and a decent amount of morale damage as well. As you can see, these guys are breaking these Black Orcs, while the Gyrocopter as well with the Brimstone Guns able to come around back and get some nice damage in as well, while all the way over here, of course, the Moon Howlers as well as Mogreb's Mangy Marauders pushing in, very freely able to shut down the Goblobber. Unfortunately, not able to keep these guys protected. So they're in a bit of a precarious situation. I wouldn't want to be one of those guys. Now back to the front line, though, you can see the action does continue. A lot of range fire. Meanwhile, the Night Goblin Archers and the Rusty Errors as well, trying to provide some support here. While over here, you'll see the Orc Shaman does pop Fists of Gork, just trying to help the center stay alive, and almost instantaneously drawing aggro on the Orc Shaman there. Meanwhile, over here you'll see we do have Here We Go going down as well, trying to help these Black Orcs in their melee engagement, but you'll see these miners push in as well just to outnumber them and get a decent amount of hurt done, while these Black Orcs here have completely given up. They don't want to stick and fight, but the left flank has been lost, unfortunately. Overpowered, the Rusty Air is doing a lot of work there, so these guys have been completely broken. They're pulling back, while the Orc Shaman as well, you'll see, has completely shattered, not willing to stick anymore under all of that ranged fire. Finally, the Dwarf Lord is able to dive in and decides to pop into the Goblin Big Boss as well as Grimgor Ironhide here. A very precarious situation. Grimgor can do a lot of damage there, but you'll see the Lord, having used Foe Seeker, able to close that gap, while the Goblin Big Boss is diving into these Rangers with great weapons. A decent amount of hurt going into the Goblin Big Boss, but you'll see Wah and Stand Your Ground go down from Grimgor Ironhide, causing a decent amount of hurt in response to the Dwarf Lord. Meanwhile, Norgrimling's Ironbreakers tossing their charges into these Black Orcs, doing a tremendous amount of hurt there, and you'll see these Rangers with great weapons able to stick in melee as well, so not a bad call at all, those guys. While at the back there, you'll see the Moon Howlers were able to take care of the Goblobber, unfortunately, now able to push in from the rear and get a nice rear charge, coming in with full force into these Rangers, trying to shut down that range support once and for all finally. So good call there, pushing in finally, trying to shut these guys down, but you'll see they do get one more volley in, and they'll be able to stick around and fight for a decent amount of time. Rangers aren't terrible in melee, but these Ironbreakers here, you'll see, continue to toss their blasting charges. They're eating a little bit of range fire, so maybe not the best management there. They could have maybe been sent into melee or sent up here to shut down the range support, but they are doing quite a bit of work over here. I can't entirely criticize the decisions being made there. Meanwhile, you'll see the Rusty Airs as well being completely shot up by both of these units of Rangers, making sure they're not willing to stick around and fight. Great call there, getting these guys to rout, pushing them back because they are a very important support unit. Meanwhile, you'll see over here we have a lot of damage going through. Grimgor Ironhide nearly killing the Dwarf Lord here, as again another volley of those blasting charges going to these Black Orcs, nearly shattering these guys once and for all. But again, the Dwarf Lord here forced away, almost dead, just barely managed to get out of there. Grimgor has taken a decent amount of hurt, but able to stick around and fight. And you'll see here the Goblin Big Boss as well pushes down to shut down these Rangers with great weapons as they toss their axes into Grimgor Ironhide here, who has popped Gitsnick to try and get a decent amount of damage done as well. That plus 36 to armor piercing damage is absolutely tremendous. I would say, by the way, Mogreb's Mangy Marauders at this point maybe should have been sent in to melee engagement. These guys are getting a lot of hurt in. These Rangers are doing a lot of damage. And though Mogreb's Mangy Marauders aren't great in melee, by shutting down the range support, they could have done a decent amount of work there. But back to this central engagement over here, you'll see these Black Orcs are doing a lot of damage, but the Rangers here with their great weapons are able to hold these Black Orcs back, especially because they've been hurt so badly already. They're able to hold these guys back, and you can see these Black Orcs are actually beginning to rout and break. So great work there, holding that line more or less, while these miners over here were giving chase to some of these Night Goblin archers, doing a decent amount of hurt and getting these guys to break once more, though these Black Orcs are giving chase as well. Mogreb's Mangy Marauders back here, meanwhile, completely scared off under all that missile fire, while the Dwarf Lord does return under the influence of the Potion of Toughness, uses Foe Seeker to close the gap and shut down the Goblin Big Boss. Grimgor Ironhide, meanwhile, over here having a good time, pop Stand Your Ground to stay alive, and again, beating away at these Ironbreakers over here. Well, all the way back here, you'll see we do have the Goblin Big Boss marked by Ulthar, a lot of that melee damage coming in and doing extra work there, while Grimgor in the center here popping Wah, again, just trying to finish off Norgrimling's Ironbreakers, hoping that that'll be the end of the battle, I think. While down here, you'll see the Rangers as well as the Dwarf Lord, I think, pushing in to shut down Grimgor Ironhide, while over here, these Rangers as well pushing in to shut down the Moon Howlers. All the way over here, you'll see the Black Orcs have completely given up on the attack of both of these miners with blasting charges, though the Rusty Airs and the Night Goblin Archers are able to provide range support once more and doing a decent amount of hurt there. You'll see a lot of Dwarves are dying today. These guys are not going back to their mines, but over here you'll see focusing down, I think, a little bit on Grimgor, the Lord here, the Dwarf Lord pushing in, while back here these Moon Howlers have been taken care of again. Rangers are relatively capable in melee, again, relatively speaking, while back there the Goblin Big Boss just kind of standing there looking pretty. But up front here, the Dwarf Lord does dive in to Grimgor Ironhide, getting a decent amount of damage done. Miners over here as well, diving in. I think the Gyrocopter with Brimstone guns trying to get some hurt in as well a little earlier. These guys did a good job as well. I didn't really focus on them, but they did a good job staying behind enemy lines, popping shots off and getting guys to break under artillery fire. But at this point, Grimgor Ironhide does give up, doesn't want to fight anymore. The Greenskins shatter, and a Pyrrhic victory for the Dwarfs in a very aggressive battle once again. The sheer amount of pressure the Dwarfs applied from beginning to end broke the Greenskins in this battle. The Dwarfs got the early upper hand and maintained it when they removed Greenskin magic from the field. Bringing Rangers with heavy weapons to the field was a good idea, as you're likely to face heavily armored, armor-piercing units against the Greenskins as Dwarfs, and the Dwarfs simply outnumbered and outmaneuvered the Greenskins, breaking their front lines and chasing their archers away. As always, make sure you subscribe to this channel for more Total War content and keep sending in those battle replays. I do think it's one of the best ways to learn, and it's always great to highlight such great and inventive battles from the community. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the battlefield.